star tonight. Intergalactic light so bright. Dakota show so out of sight. Blast off now, take flight. Aliens and rockin' tunes, country beats under the moons. Space dust in my boots, all new. Gigolos hosting soon. Welcome to the galaxy. Radio waves so wild and free. Tune and feel the energy. With Dakota ride the beat. When it's been new every song.
What is up? How are you, my ladies, my gentlemen? Come now, let the gigolo ease your tensions, ease your mind as he penetrates deep within you. Oh, man. Sorry, couldn't resist. Oh, hell. What is up, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Dakota France, and I am the Intergalactic Gigolo. Today's recording date is September 21st. Do you remember the 21st night of September? Sorry. My niece is fucking obsessed with the troll movies, so I'm hearing that being played over and over and over. But I love her. Today's recording date is September 21st, 2024. It is approximately 2:51 a.m. I hope y'all are having a good time. I hope as the fall starts to settle here in the northern hemisphere, the temperatures start to cool. Y'all doing good. I know holiday stress is just around the corner. Some of y'all probably not looking forward to that. I know I ain't. Shocker, shocker, Dakota's a little bit of a Scrooge. Oh, well, yeah, I have my reasons, but we're not here to talk too much about the negative aspects. You know, there might be a little bit of a heated discussion going on, but yeah, you know, that's good. If we get a discussion going on, that means I did my job. But let's be civil about it. You fucking I'm just joking. Let's be civil. Argue the ideas, not the person. Come together so we can figure this shit out. That's the message I really want to relay right now. Come together so we can really figure this shit out. And I'll explain why I brought that up here in a minute. But first, we have a couple special shout-outs. I know, where the show's a little pre-recorded. You know, it may deteriorate some of the meaning, but sentiments are still there. First message we have, a little shout out we have, it goes to one of our younger fans, Tommy, who turns 11 today. Yes, some crazy parent out there is letting their children watch my programs. Oh, well, I try to keep it, PG-13, even on my bad days. Tommy, I hope you're having a good birthday, dude. Plenty of presents. Careful of those girls, man. Careful of those girls. I know you're not going to really understand. You might think I'm just talking out of my butt here, but enjoy being young while you can, my friend. The world's crazy out there. Secondly, we have another shout out for another life milestone, if you will. Vivian and Jacob. Ladies and gentlemen, please do put your hands together and, give warm congratulations, because these two have recently gotten married. Oh! Shout out to the lucky couple. Hope it all goes well. And seriously, did you have the ceremony in a graveyard? Give me a call if you have any hauntings because of that. Oh, I would love to hear that story. And yes, I'm not joking. This crazy kids decided to have their wedding in a cemetery. So, but then again, from what I've read up on Viv, she's a little I tease with love, okay? I tease with love. Trust me. Pay attention to half the shit that comes out of my mouth. You know that I can have not much room to judge. Okay, so what is really on the agenda for today? Well, I had a couple, on top of the little shout-outs, I had a couple audience members, send me a few email messages through social media and email. Wanted me to answer some questions real quick. And obviously, ladies and gentlemen, if there's something that you would like me to talk about, or you have any questions you want to ask, feel free to message. I try not to be too much of an a-hole, but I will say this. I also I also reserve the right to set respectable boundaries. And in the event you do try to message me and I don't catch it right away, don't start firing off. Because, yeah, hey, I'm a busy guy. I got things to do. In fact, some of you may have seen one of the short little BB shorts I like to put out from time to time. Wondered what in the world is going on. What's going on with why did that? What's going on with the criminal investigation? I can't divulge too much information at this time. It is these are some rather serious allegations that have come forward. How did I get wind of it? Well, let's just say some people tried to stir up trouble, and I made the connection that they've been causing a lot of grief. So, and due to the nature of what they've been doing, they will probably be facing some serious jail time. And I'm not just talking about for trolling. Let's just say they're really starting to reconsider some of the things they thought were just harmless little jokes. And there's been a couple people who address, Dakota, you don't have to tell people when stuff like that happens. Your real followers, they'll know you're a busy guy. Well, that may be true, but there is points where, obviously, because of just simple distance, time zone differences, all that mess, where, finding time to have a proper one-on-one with someone can be kind of difficult. So I had to put out some of these notifications from time to time, say, hey, don't worry, things are good, it's been handled. My contribution to that investigation is complete. I have forwarded all the necessary materials to the appropriate authorities, and as a lot of you here in the States know, the legal proceedings here can take fucking forever. So it's highly unlikely that I will need to be involved any further, but as a simple moral statement, as well as, I guess you can call it somewhat of a political stance, I and my company, Bald and Bonkers Network LLC, fully support law enforcement. I myself do have law enforcement connections, as many of you have been aware through some previous shows. And in order to help nurture the relationships, so that way there is still a free exchange of information should any situation require it to arise, I and Bald and Bonkers Network LLC will fully cooperate with any law enforcement investigation. We will not hold back any information. We will forward as much as we have, as much as we can dig up, as well as tip off about any further incidents that may arise. We will provide everything. This is a stance because there's some of you who clearly have issues with boundaries. And unfortunately, because some of the cases I've took on regarding the supernatural, some of the worst of humanity had unfolded that caused that activity, so we had to establish these relationships so that way we could help people and we can do what's right. And I carry that investigative side to further company operations because we got to step away from this mentality that just because someone triggers us online means that we should go on little tirades. Yeah, I know I was horrible about it, but I'll come up to this point here in a sec. But back to the criminal investigation. My part seems to be finished, but communications will be open. I will be eyeballing this case because I don't know what happened with these people to where going that far off course. Why they feel they could justify that? Why could how they thought they could ruin their lives doing what they did? I don't know. But the situation will be monitored, and if any further incidents arise, I will respond with full cooperation and full force if I have to. I know, it's kind of scary when I have to put it like that, but unfortunately, some nasty stuff comes up and we gotta handle it. Can't let it get to us, can't let it stress us out. Handle it when it comes so we can move on to the good stuff, right? So, speaking of the good stuff, I want to move on to one of the emails I received. Alright, got the email pulled up here. So, this person, I think they identified themselves as, let's see, what was it? As Antonio. Antonio Raha. Just teasing, brother. So, Antonio writes, say, hey, Dakota, been following you for a while. I wanted to ask you more about that Dune planet because I've been watching some other, creators who discuss Galactic Federation Light, and they talked about these beings. And for some reason, I had the feeling that this was somehow connected to what you were describing, spending about 2 months off-world on a diplomatic mission. And I was just wondering if there was, in fact, a connection, or if you're still trying to figure that out. I'm still kind of... He also addresses that he's still kind of confused about how my side of thing works. And believe me, Armando, I already sent the email back, but I felt that I should bring this up on the show because I imagine there's probably going to be some other people who are wondering about it. So, for those of you who don't know, a few episodes back, I called it a Starbound Sandstorm. And it was describing a possible recall I had where I was off-world, seemingly on a diplomatic mission, and unfortunately, something came up. There was an attack while we were there, and we were forced to jump right into the fray. And shortly after the attack finally settled, that was how we managed to earn the trust of the people that were there. I know I said that there was humanoids there, and there were, from what I could tell, but there were also some other things that I didn't have quite a good view on it. I tried, when I recorded that episode, I was trying to get the information out as fresh as I could, as early as I could, because, and this will go into the second part of your question, trying to figure out how my thought process has been working. Because if I can get it documented and show that I've had documentation already stating that something like this was taking place, and somehow later down the line someone comes up who I have had no contact with within that time frame to corroborate stories, if they come out detailing what I describe and maybe help fill in some of the blanks, for me, that's a form of validation. And right now, it's one of the easiest things. And this is part of the discussion I want to get into with this entire episode. Now, I'm fairly certain I know who the other creator is. And I asked Armando if that was the case, to which he said yes, it was. It was in regard to one of Elena Danon's recent Star Nation news videos talking about diplomatic relations with the Arek. A-R-E-K is how she spelled it. Where Thorhan was describing diplomatic missions and in sort of a professional frame point. In order to allow for those diplomatic relations to swing in the right direction, swing in the direction that we want, we had to exchange some favors. Exactly what couldn't be released, at least through that channel. When it comes to my own recalls, yes, I've talked with Elena and Tony and discussed things with a few others to try to see what the best course of action would be in order to focus in on what's happening to me and try to find the best method of approach, right? So part of that was obviously some recall sessions, some remote viewing, but an interesting twist in this regard was when my wife's envoy was located and she and I became closer and closer. We got to knowing each other pretty well. Right at the same time, I was seeing these Dune missions. She was picking up the same thing from her perspective. Now, as far as how that works, think of it as kind of like Doctor Who. I know, I make a lot of pop culture references, but this is how I process things. Where technically, at any given time throughout the multiverse, there could be more than one incarnation of the Doctor running about. and sometimes they could physically meet in person. Take it a step further, one now I've always kind of used to kind of describe how I've come to approach it is that myself and my other self, known as Alarian for those of you who have been following, the way we've tried to process it is that we are like that our relationship and how we're intertwined with one another is like we are long lost identical twin brothers. Technically, at a certain level, we are the same person, but we're different people at the same time. And that's one way to actually try to think about, dealing with other selves throughout the multiverse and different timelines, is that technically it'd be like you having a twin. And chances are, because the structures that make you up physically, on a physical level and on a spiritual soul level, are going to be just close enough in frequency, if not perfectly aligned, to where you can pick up on each other's messages. Now, Alarian, he's a bit more skilled at blocking things out than I am, for obvious reasons. And the same can be said about my wife's envoy. She hasn't quite dedicated as much focus into this subject as I have, but she's experiencing a lot of the same phenomenon that's backing this up. So, I just lost my train of thought there. Right. Okay. Now I know where I was going with this. So being that we had that sort of frequency alignment, you also have to take into consideration that these beings are not perfect. They have their own flaws. They can get caught up in the emotions. They can get really rage and pissed off. They can suffer heartache. They can grieve over their loved ones that died, all the same as we can. And much like how someone who has some sort of supernatural ability, psychic disposition, that's a whole nother topic in itself. As much as their emotions can tie into how their abilities might manifest, same thing goes for them. Like I said, they may have better understanding, better control, and can flip it off easy, but there's moments where they get caught up in the emotion. And whenever they're getting caught up into something big, my wife and I are picking up on the signals. We're picking it up. And it's at such an emotional intensity that we may as well be there. So was I physically taken off world? Maybe. I still haven't checked that footage yet on my security cameras. Oh, that's okay. The hard drive unit itself that the cameras are connected to can record for about a year before it erases itself, so I have time. But still, the signals can actually breach through time and space. And depending on the circumstances, depending on, how excited, for lack of a better word, people get involved, that's going to affect it essentially could affect all incarnations at once that may be within a certain defined space. And if it's charged powerfully enough, as I was meaning to say, it does not necessarily matter how far apart they may seem, because all points in time and space are connected. It will not matter. And that's where the trippy part gets in. So in a way, if you want to simplify it to how my information comes forward, this is because you can think of it as I am if you think about it in sort of military terms, in sort of a military family-esque dynamic, right? I am the one who could not pass medical examinations in spite of really wanting to enlist. So whenever I get a chance to see or talk to anybody who's in my family who's connected to this stuff and want to hear stories, they'll tell me what they can. And every now and then, you could think of it as someone didn't exactly log out of their computer and I could see everything. But then they would realize that an unauthorized individual has accessed it. They'll shut it down and say, no, 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 be gone. That's how my stuff works. So naturally, when you're dealing with a situation that has such an emotional impact, alone can affect memory. And where we're talking about, again, kind of going back to the frequencies not exactly being quite in line with each other, the signals can get lost, or you can only get bits of information. So I'm sitting here trying to document everything I see, everything that happens in my physical life around me. Say, like I said, I am not joking when I said there's been a couple times where I know I had a visitation. I get back, I'm running outside, looking right up, and I'm watching this trail of light just act like it's charging up and leave and just shoot just straight up. And it's right above, almost neck breaking straight up. I've seen it on multiple occasions. Unfortunately, the damn thing was moving too fast for me to grab a camera and start documenting. But do not be mistaken, motherfuckers. I have actually caught photos. I have caught video of multiple craft. And that is hard to do when you're moving in the moment and you didn't exactly have a spot prepped. So, applause to me. Anyway, but we can go into that. One resource I would like to recommend, and it was Dots that, so if he's in the chat, Dots is the one that pointed me in their direction. Check out the works of the Farsight Institute. I know there's a little bit concern regarding mention of Esasani, but just research and use your own discernment, okay? The Farsight Institute actually has some incredible resources and teachings on how to get involved in like remote viewing. They have instructions on how to try to capture craft on film, the type of settings you should use, stuff like that. What the hell is that noise? I just heard someone. Alright, I'm gonna have to go back and post and see if that was caught, because that was weird. And now I lost my train of thought. Well, it is after 3 a.m., so who knows? I got the Hispanic Catholic Church next door to me. I got UFO visitors, shady neighbors. And this is why I've been doing pre-recording mostly, because I get so damn distracted. Anyway, alright, Farsight. Farsight Institute, they have some pretty good resources for people to check out, and I highly recommend it. Do your own research. Don't just take my word for it, right? Now, bouncing back to what I was trying to say. This is where my situation has its own sort of foot in the door, if you will. And this relies on other aspects of the story that are hard to fully validate, but it does help point myself in the right direction. And that is the fact that Thorhan Iridian, Elena Danon's contact, is technically one of the big bosses above Valerian. And Valerian is still an active duty officer, as well as Evina. Michael, my son even, he has decided to become a pilot, and it's my understanding he himself got promoted to like a sort of sergeant-like role. And while technically they're still the peons, they can validate what this allows me is that I can make note of what I see through their eyes. Jot it down, maybe do a little video so that way it's posted publicly. I can wait for other sources that are connected to me to discuss very similar incidents. And that's actually happened on a few occasions, to where, even though, yes, I do still consider Elena a friend, it's been a while since she and I had a one-on-one. The fact that we haven't had any conversations taking place between us, and she's busy with her own situation to not really read up on what I've been up to. You know, no, I'm done, I get it. It's hard to balance. It's hard to balance life when you're awesome. I get it. I'm not quite at that level yet, but we'll see. Because there hasn't been that level of communication, I can use that to help validate. And one of some of the stuff that I've had come forward that Elena's verified later on, usually in a span about up to a month, if I recall correctly. 2 months, I think the longest is, but it is the Namopo joining the Galactic Federation of Worlds. There's the Maria Orsich connection, where right as she's going into that, I got a tip that Alarian, a Tal Shiar renegade who defected from the Dark Fleet may have actually been on Earth at one point and has been physically photographed. There's photographs of this motherfucker. The third being, potentially, I'm still trying to focus in on the recall myself to try to get a little bit more detail, was her Star Nation news where she was talking about the Eric. Because Alarian and Evina were on one of those diplomatic missions to try to help foster new relationships to establish a proper alliance. And because those things transpired, things are moving in a much more positive direction. That much I can tell you. And while that does not do much in regards to the grand scope of, providing, tangible proof, I'll admit that little tidbit where Elena's coming out with similar, if not the same materials as I am, where she's getting the official public release statement, whereas I'm getting the nitty gritty, inner gossip from the souls themselves. If we were to relate how these two roles function, then that helps me keep myself in check. Basically, just to say that, okay, yes, this stuff is happening. I haven't gone too crazy. To which this leads me to the last little audience question that was brought up, and people wanted to get my thoughts about it, and was that apparently in a recent interview, George Norrie discussed Elena Denon and how he was skeptical of her claims. I haven't listened to that episode of Coast to Coast yet. I'm aware that individuals who feel very protective of Elena didn't exactly take that lightly. I don't necessarily get the feeling that that Norrie's wasn't trying to be directly negative about it. He just seems to be a very investigative mindset, and whereas certain aspects of this can come across a little bit too new agey, or there's aspects that are just flat out difficult to gather suitable evidence in the court of public opinion, if you want to use that term. Those sort of commentaries, that speculation, that skepticism is to be expected, if not encouraged. And this is nothing against Elena. I have personals, like I said before, and I'll say it again, and I'll say it till my last dying breath. I've seen too much weird shit happen around that woman to really deny that there isn't something going on. Exactly what? For argument's sake, I'll say I'm not 100% sure. I'm not joined at the hip with her to watch everything unfold for myself. But something is going on there, and she is worth observing just to see what else may come forward. And here's the thing, and I've said it before and I'll say it again. Sometimes this new age approach, these efforts to turn disclosure into religion, even if people don't realize they're doing it. And when these sort of mentalities are fostered and are not addressed, it triggers the parts of the brain that rely on tribalism. And that makes people do stupid stuff. That makes people do stupid shit in the interest of protecting their tribe. And it also makes them vulnerable to people who can manipulate the situation. Even if it's the person themselves that's under the focus of these attacks. Letting ourselves get emotionally charged is what has allowed individuals to manipulate us, to pit us against each other. And that has got to stop, unless there's absolutely beyond reasonable doubt that the individual is purposely looking to cause harm. We're all just trying to figure out what's going on. And you know what? I'll say it. There's been times where I've been put under the microscope that came across as a personal attack to me. People try to bring my integrity into question, and the first thing I'm wanting to do is pull out a gun and start shooting. Because there's an aspect of it to where I'm feeling cornered, and it kicks in a fight or flight response. Now, me using the analogy that I feel like I'm going to start shooting is just a metaphor. I'm an American. We like our guns. I know that's a bit of a hot debate, but nevertheless, it establishes the imagery I want to get across, because I'm a big dude. And people see me hulking out, they're going to get scared. I have proof I have witnesses, and I have law enforcement contacts to back it up, that there was a robbery that was diverted because of me. Someone tried to rob the place I was working at. They had a gun on them. They thought that we had a register. We didn't. I used to work at a major blue box retail chain within their deli department. And this individual thought we had a register and thought that he could corner us, try to rob us, and be able to get out. But the second he saw me, he turned around, went back out to his car, changed his clothes, grabbed his baby, grabbed his wife, walked back into the store and started shopping like nothing happened. True fucking story. And did I realize at the time that that's what happened? No, I didn't find out until some of my contacts got a hold of me and said, "So Dakota, did you know about that robbery?" What? A true story. People get desperate, and individuals who may not, and unfortunately, us pitting us against each other puts us at a point where we are not utilizing our brains to their full potential. Because if we were to actually stop and think, hey, what's actually going on here? And put the pieces together, maybe more and more of us would start fucking realizing that people are taking advantage, that we're fighting over, race, we're fighting over immigration, fighting because of the LGBTQ, that all these individuals, every single movement that has gained massive amount of attention, that has actually been infiltrated and is being manipulated to stir up conflict so we can't focus on the real fucking enemies. When we realize that, when we actually pull our heads out of our asses, realize, hey, something ain't right here, let's talk, get a game plan going, and work together. The world would not be as chaotic as it is if we focused on that notion instead of trying to seek some sort of savior, some sort of messiah to wipe our ass for us. What is with that? Why are we still trying to give other beings the power that we have to fix this shit? Why are we still forking over our power and fighting over the most mundane, pathetic? It's just not worth it. People are going to have a difference of opinion. That's fine. Let's talk about those differences, and maybe, just maybe, each party can bring up points that the other has not taken into consideration, and they can fully evaluate things, fully evaluate what's going on from a different perspective, and maybe find new answers, better answers. Worst case scenario, we realize we're just being fucking idiots and we really need to change. That's the truth of it. Coming together with the purpose that, hey, we need to do something. We need to do something to be better, to help this grow. When you genuinely love something, someone, you want them to grow. We've lost that. We've buried it so deep within ourselves because we're so self-conscious about how others think. Let's just put our foot forward. That kindness will radiate out. It will affect others. It will help others. It will draw in conflict, yes. But eventually those losers will drown themselves out. Or maybe, just maybe, they realize, hey, I'm being kind of a jerk. Maybe I need to rethink some things. You know? This trying to pick a fight is not going to win. Conflict is inevitable. But how much of this conflict can we actually settle by just sitting down and talking and trying to sort out what's going on? That's what I have to say about that. It does not matter who's the focus. People will come and go. The faces may change. The words may change. But the sole purpose of it all will still remain. And that is the truth. Life is confusing. Life is suffering. That is one of the first teachings of some of the most ancient religions. But it can also be quite beautiful. It can help foster new life. And speaking of which, a little while back, some of you noted that there was the name Emily on a podcast. I don't think I put this out on last time, but Some new information has come forward for those of you who would like to hear about my star connections. I think y'all are going to like this one. Much love. Take care. Bit of a short one today, but I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Ride the beat when it's spin to every song, jamming all night long.